Hello everyone and welcome to Old Guy Paintball. My name is Craig and I am the host. In today's episode 3 of How to Improve the NXL, I'll be doing my final thoughts and a wrap up with my final point. If you missed the first two parts, please go back and check them out. I've provided some interesting ideas of how I think the NXL can be improved, not only from a player's perspective, but also a fan's perspective. So if you get a chance, please head over and check those out the past couple of weeks. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future content that I'll be having. And with that, I'm going to get into point 3. Point 3, the way to improve the NXL is to improve the pace of the game. Now, I was going to do this last week, but I want to do some research into what I'm sure most of you have already seen is the NXL is adopting a 5 pod per player maximum per point, plus the hopper. And this has kind of been one of the issues that's been going on for the past couple of years that, both sides have their views on it. Some people like the fact that a guy can carry 11 pods and just sit there and lane and dump pods and pour paint down there. And other people think that it should be limited and have a much more fluid environment where players can make moves and everything else. The NXL Europe adopted the 5 pod, I believe, over a year ago, and we figured it would eventually come here into America at some point. Because one of the problems is that I've seen in the past is some of these points now are going 4, 5, 6 minutes long. And you know what? You're seeing a lot of games where it's 2-1, 3-2. Only 2 to 3, 4 points being scored. Yes, there's always going to be some, mercy rules and higher point scoring. But oftentimes we've seen a lot of them where these points have dragged on between 3 and 5 minutes. And one of the issues is you're trying to get the sport back on something like ESPN or some other major sports network. And, that's just not going to sell. People want to see, kind of in America, they like to see more action-oriented sports. And watching a guy sitting there going, just doing this for several minutes, and they're not moving, isn't going to help. Paintball's kind of a difficult sport to watch because unless you know the sport or play the sport, it kind of becomes confusing to where every bunker is and who's doing this and who's doing that. So we found that out with the 3-man experiment last year on ESPN, where it was a very fast-paced and people had some struggles trying to follow and comprehend the game. And these long, drawn-out points that you see that have been on there, they kind of also can be kind of confusing because people are like, what the heck are they shooting at and why is nobody moving? So we're in that really gray area of we need a faster pace for games and to get it back into mainstream so people are entertained by it. But we don't want it so fast that it's just like, what happened? So I'm not going to get too in-depth with this because, one, I don't want to talk about till after I see the first tournament here in a couple of weeks, how it plays out. And then we'll probably go back to this here somewhere later in the year, and I'll see, and we'll discuss some, what I think may be other ideas that people have had and proposed, and just how the general perception is at first, how it goes off, because one of the things we have to look at is realistically is this may or may not work out well, and it might be adjusted somewhere in the season. So I'm going to wait to see how the first tournament is, and then probably sometime, hopefully here in April or May, before the second one goes off, I will talk about it further just in case they would make a major change and drop it and go back. We don't really kind of know what they're going to do, so this is kind of something new. But I personally am very excited about it. I think the 5 pod and hopper will increase mobility. It'll make moves a little bit more challenging because guys will not be being hosed down by a stream and can't move. So you might see guys maybe attack more. They may try to make more challenging moves in that, trying to get farther down the field on somebody. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But the pace of the game picking up is be a huge thing for the NXL, especially trying to go forward. So with that, that's my final point. And now I'm going to kind of do a wrap up. In the past couple of weeks, I've talked about a variety of things, from the size of the NXL to sponsorships, paying and getting more prize money, and more money into the system itself. And of course, now just today's episode with the pace of the game. First of all, I'm not here to bash on the NXL or Major League Paintball, or Tom Cole at all. I think they're all devoted to providing us the best possible paintball experience. And honestly, without them, we wouldn't even be doing this or talking about it. So without their support and their input and their attempts to make the game better, we wouldn't even have pro paintball or this national program as it is. But in the past, the MPPL and the PSP have failed, and often you can credit it to obviously several issues. But one of the big things that did come up in the past is the financials. And I think that one of the issues we have to have is how do we make the paintball sport more proactive financially for not only players, but the league and just for its general survivability. And that's going to come down to a compilation of several things: size, sponsorship, speed of the game, exposure, and they all have to kind of, mesh together to get a good product. So I think there is room for the NXL to improve, and I think they have to, at this point, have to start thinking about possibly changing their business model and maybe doing some different things. And I know they try to experiment different things at different times to see how they work, but we have to kind of get a fundamental goal in mind, and we have to get on a path that will take us there. Because without that, I really could see the possibility of the NXL / Major League Paintball having another collapse and failing again. Because at some point, the cost of doing business will exceed what people are going to want to put out or put into the sport. So with that, like I said, I'm thankful for the NXL, Major League Paintball, and Tom Cole, and all the work they've done to create the best possible sports for us. But I think it's time that we have to start thinking about going outside the box and tweaking things to make it even better for the future. Because paintball is going to be relying on growth, not just on, say, TV or, just the general things like that, but getting other people and youth involved in the sport to make it grow. Otherwise, eventually it'll just kind of start to fizzle out again. And I know we run that roller coaster where we see peaks and valleys at different times, based on a lot of varieties. And I've discussed those in many previous episodes. And for those of you who have followed me in the past, you've probably seen me talk about those. But I think we need to kind of find a way to go from the, these up and down roller coasters to kind of more of just a little gentle wave and a more of a flat, even curve, because that's what's going to be the best for the sport. And with that, I'd like to know, what do you think? Do you think that was right with some of my thoughts in all these past few videos? Do you have different ideas? If you do, put them in the comments down below. I love to read them. Send me an email, whatever, if you want to discuss it more in depth. I will come back to this at some point and probably discuss it during the year when I do a mid-season report on the NXL. But I'm very interested to see what all of you think. Because remember, your opinion has a lot to do with how the NXL is going to go in the future. Because, the bottom line is we're the ones that are going to be investing in, the sport, whether we watch it on TV or go to events or participate. So really, your input is important to making the NXL succeed. And by commenting on places like my channel or as somebody else's, maybe the NXL will see this, and maybe they will start to say, hey, maybe we have to think about doing things differently to keep our fan base, wrapped up in our product. And with that, I want to thank everybody for all your support, your likes, your comments. Again, like I said, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future content. We know the season's about ready to start. I'll be doing a preview and handicapping of what I think what the teams will do in this first event and talk about it here shortly. And with that, thank you all again for your support, and I look forward to seeing all of you on the paintball field soon.